The throne room smelled of hot iron and crushed roses, and the light that poured through the high, narrow windows was the color of thin wine. Swords made walls, and the great black thing that had once been a chair loomed like a cliff of frozen metal in the midst of all that marble. Men stood beneath it, and boys and women in silk, and all their jewels and torches cast a multitude of small fires on the floor. The hush that lived in such places did not live there now. The hush had been driven out by whispers and the restless scrape of spear butts and the drag of cloaks. Cersei Lannister, in a gown that made her green eyes greener, held the room by the throat without moving a finger. The boy on the blades above her had folded his legs as if he belonged there. Joffrey sat easy and shallow, fingers on the arms, one leg bobbing, petulance coiled about him like a scent only he could smell. Eddard Stark felt the bruise throb in his leg with every step he took and thought, as he often did now, of the cold in Winterfell. The air here was fat. You could taste the gold of it. Robert's hand, still greasy from his last meal, had pressed a letter on him with the dying light in his eyes. The seal was the stag in black wax. The script had used words that spoke the truth politely enough to pass unchallenged and blunt enough to be iron. Rule in my stead. Not in the boy's stead, not in my heir's stead. In my stead. Eddard heard those words as he advanced and heard the soft intake of breath from the courtiers who had not expected him to come so plainly, without fanfare, to end a question that no one else dared to name. Petyr Baelish walked half a pace to Eddard's left, as if he were the shadow of a taller man. He looked at the same sights, and they gave him pleasure of a different sort, the way an accountant might enjoy a full purse and a butcher a clean cut. He was smiling with his eyes and not with his mouth. Behind them came Janos Slint and a wedge of gold cloaks, halberds bright. Baelish's fingers brushed the air as if measuring a wind, and the wind he measured was coin and fear and vanity. "Lord Eddard," Cersei said, with a tilt to the head that made her hair glimmer. "Bold to come limping into a lion's den without a lion." "A lion is easy to find," Eddard said. The stiffness in his voice was not insolence but pain. "The rightful king, less so." Joffrey's heel banged once on the iron behind him. "You will kneel," the boy said. He had a little voice that worked very hard. "Mother, make him kneel." Eddard lifted the parchment and the black seal caught the light. "Lord Varys, Maester Pycelle, Ser Barristan, all here have served the realm longer than I. Listen and witness." He did not look at Petyr. He did not need to. "Your Grace," Cersei said, and her hand touched the iron next to Joffrey's elbow with delicate possession. "Tear it up." Barristan Selmy's face had the patient misery of a man who had given his life to an idea and found mortal fingers smudging it always. Varys looked down at the stones as if they might whisper counsel up through his slippers. Pycelle tugged at his beard and made old man sounds he thought sounded like wisdom. The hound stood at the foot of the dais, his monstrous shadow thrown long. His head turned so that the burned flesh drank the torches while the other side watched, cold and ordinary. Ser Meryn Trant and Ser Boros Blunt leaned their weight into their white cloaks, and the white cloaks leaned into their swords. Eddard broke the seal. The hiss of wax parting was little, but it found its way through the room all the same. He read Robert's words and handed the parchment not to Cersei but to Barristan. "The king knew you to be more faithful than any parchment, sire." Barristan's eyes moved across the page, the lids fluttering once. He turned the parchment so the seal was visible to all, then held it with both hands reversed so it did not seem that he clutched it to himself. "It is the king's hand and seal," he said. His voice a stone dropped in a cistern. "Then kneel," Joffrey said, high and thin. "All of you, kneel to your king." "You are Robert's son," Eddard said, and the word son was a tolling bell in his mouth. "No man here disputes your blood, your grace. Yet there is a law older than any of us. The king is dead. Until the rightful succession be determined, the king appointed me protector. I claim that charge and ask the keepers of the peace to uphold it." "Peace?" Cersei said softly, like a cat noticing something small. "Yes, the peace that one keeps with a knife at one's throat." She reached for the parchment then, quick as any court cat, fingers poised like claws. and there Petyr Baelish moved. He had not been still. He had been coiled, and the coil released looked like grace. He was not large, but he had the gift of being where a larger man did not expect him to be. He intercepted her fingertips with a bow, not touching her, touching the air between them, a barrier of courtesy. "Your Grace," he said, and the sound was honey poured into milk. "If the realm is to live another hour, we must obey the last word of the man who held it in his hands. The city watch is sworn to the city above all. The city breathes with laws and coin. It cannot breathe at the bottom of a river of blood." "And which river do you mean to pour us into, little man?" Cersei asked, and smiled with her teeth. "Do you imagine yourself deep enough to drown a Lannister?" Janos Slynt shifted his weight. He did not like conversations that had teeth. He liked coins, and he liked orders that could be carried out. Lord Petyr had given him both. He could feel the coins like warm stones in his purse, and the orders fit his shoulders like a doublet very slightly too tight, so that he would be aware of them when he moved. "Lord Commander," Eddard said, turning to Slynt. "The king is dead. I am the protector of the realm by his will. Seize the queen and Prince Joffrey. No blood if it may be help. Edition Ser Barristan, in the king's name, command the Kingsguard to obey the law." There was a breath. The Gold Cloaks lowered their halberds in one motion learned in the yard and used there to please a captain. It made a lovely sound in the vastness, a whisper that became thunder, steel kissing steel as shafts aligned and angles united. Faces that had watched with dull curiosity went intent. Hands that had rested on pommels closed. "No," Cersei said, and her voice was slow and bright like a blade sliding from a sheath. "Now," Petyr breathed, but he breathed it behind his teeth, so that only Janos heard, and Janos did not hear words as much as he heard permission to do a thing that would make him larger in the city than he had been before. Slynt lifted his hand and dropped it. The nearest halberd tips, which had been pointed at no one, found a target. Not Eddard's men this time. They pressed into red cloth and white cloak, and a sudden scatter of Lannister steel scraped stone. The sound of the change was like a flock taking flight. Sandor Clegane had his sword out before the first gilded halberd made a short, sharp sound against Meryn Trant's blade. The hound did not waste words, but his whistle to his men was like a dog's to hounds in brush. 3 gold cloaks fell in the first heartbeat, and a fourth shrieked as the hound's sword made a border between him and the world. "Hold!" Barristan's voice cut through before the blood could decide it would have more. "You stand down. You! Put those bloody sticks somewhere wise." The hound's head turned, only the unscarred side moving, the other side a thing of old fire turned leather. His sword never dipped. "My prince," he said, eyes on the boy. "Behind me." "Seize them," Eddard said, and he did not raise his voice. He did not know how to make his words louder. He knew how to make them heavier. Arrows spoke from the gallery. Small, sleek voices from crossbows Petyr had placed there through Slynt, hidden behind arras and a tapestry of some king's hunt. The bolts were short and fat and ugly. They planted themselves in the floor before the hound's boots and between Meryn Trant's feet, and the gold cloaks did not flinch for once. Men in the galleries cranked again, and every cranking was a reminder that death loved a high place to look down from. "The city watch is sworn," Janos Slynt announced, as if he were remembering the words even as he spoke them. "To the peace of the king's landing, and to he that holds the king's seal in the interregnum," Petyr murmured. "In the queen's mercy," Slynt said, and felt the cold go down the back of his neck as the green eyes burned him. "I arrest her grace the Queen Regent and Prince Joffrey Baratheon, pending judgment of the realm's lawful lords in great council." Cersei laughed. The sound was not a pretty one. "Mother," Joffrey began, and the crossbow bolts shifted a hand's breadth. It was not much, but it changed the shape of the air around his throat. Even boys can hear shape sometimes. "Enough," Barristan said, and flung the parchment aside. He took 2 long strides and stood before the steps, between throne and floor, and turned his sword point down, then lifted it and slid it back into its scabbard with a care that made the move a ceremony. "I am not sworn to a parchment," he said. "I am sworn to the law." The king named a protector. Until the lords resolve the crown, he holds the keys. Men will obey. Marentrant hesitated and found himself looking into Barristan's eyes with the same discomfort a cat feels when it realizes the bird it's stalking sees it. Boros Blunt coughed and looked at Cersei and then at the bolts and then at nothing. The hound's sword went on pointing at the world, but his body made a different shape now, shoulders turned toward the wall with the tapestries and his stance not as open. Cersei's smile did not crumble. It did not know how. It shifted, and what he saw there Eddard would remember many nights in the years that followed. There was something amused and something joyous and something like loss. "Then take us," she said, as if offering a lover a place beside her, and stretched her wrists for the gold of the cuffs. They brought chains because chains were in the room, absurdly, as though the throne bred them like mice. The sound they made when they closed on Lannister silk was satisfying to Janos Slynt and melancholy to Barristan. The hound watched the cuffs go on the boy's wrists with the intentness of a beast that expects a blow and means to bite the hand that gives it. He did not move. He had chosen to protect his prince with his eyes, not his body. "Do not mark him," Cersei commanded Slynt, as if he were a man under her roof and not under her arrest. "If the taste of your bolt head slips, all your teeth will be given to the rats of Flea Bottom one by one." "We shall all keep our teeth," Petyr said pleasantly, "if we keep our heads. Lord Commander, escort the queen and her son to comfortable confinement. The maiden vault, perhaps. Symbolism suits the day. Guard them with everything you own," Eddard said. "Ser Barristan, you will remain with me. Ser Maren, Ser Boros, you are ordered to surrender your blades and report to the White Sword Tower until your orders are made clear. Should any of your brothers in white bear arms without my approval until the lords gather, they will answer for it as for treason." Trant worked his mouth. He looked to Cersei, and Cersei looked at nothing he understood. He gave up his sword the way fools give up dice when they've lost the rent. Boros did the same, looking relieved and swollen. The hound lifted his wrists for the manacles and then laughed when a gold cloak brought them near, and the laugh was so ugly the man fell back as if he'd seen a wave coming. "You'll not chain me, fat one," Sandor said. "I'm no sworn brother. I'll go where I'm bid, or I'll be bid nowhere, and neither way do I take iron toys." "Le. "To him be," Eddard said. "He answers for his own actions. He will answer if we call. Ser Hound, you may remain, unarmed, and sit, or you may go to your kennel. But you will not draw steel in this hall again without leave, upon pain of being put down like a mad cur." The hound smiled with half his mouth and threw his sword to the stone, so that it clanged and skittered and came to rest at Barristan's boot. He walked to the base of a pillar and slid down into a sprawl. "I've no love of chains," he said, "and I've less love of boys on chairs." They took Cersei and Joffrey away under 20 crossbows and 100 bright points, and the sound of their departure was the whisper of silk on stone. Only when the doors sighed shut and the room met itself again did the hush return, as if it had been waiting outside, patient as northern snow. Eddard stood very straight, though every line of him was a complaint. He looked up at the thing of iron with its thousands of frozen edges and then away. "Lord Varys," he said, "send word to Dragonstone for Lord Stannis Baratheon that King Robert is dead and the crown awaits judgment of the realm. He is summoned to sit in council upon it. Send word to Storm's End for Lord Renly likewise. Maester Pycelle, write what I have said and send copies to every great lord. The Tullys, the Arryns, the Tyrells, the Martells, the Freys, the Greyjoys, and to Casterly Rock. Tywin Lannister is commanded to recall his men out of the Riverlands and to present himself to the city for inquiry into the offenses of his house. The Riverlands will see relief. Lord Petyr, we will need coin and a steady hand upon it. Lord Commander Slynt." "Yes, Lord," Slynt said, remembering a different form of address at the last moment and making it sound like he'd broken a tooth on it. "Close the gates. No Lannister man enters or leaves the city without my word. Double the watches. Set more men in the Red Keep. Men you trust. Take no bribes." Slynt colored and shifted. Petyr Baelish did not blink. "When the lords come," Eddard went on, "we will have law and we will have a king. And if they do not come?" Petyr asked lightly, turning so that the line of his back seemed to applaud Eddard's spine rather than oppose it. If they send ravens that bruise us with polite excuses, or if they come with swords. The roads are long, and lords are lazy. Then we will wait and hold the city against all comers, Eddard said. There was no pride nor heroics in it when he said it. It was simple, the way you say in winter you will eat oats and salt beef and not die. Littlefinger lowered his eyes. The smile that lived there had pricked and tasted blood for the first time since dawn, and it wanted more. He would give it in due measure. For now, he put the smile away as a careful man puts away a small sharp knife. When he lifted his gaze again, he had painted prudence over everything. "As you command," he said, making a little gesture that included the room, the throne, the windows, and returned to Eddard like a gift. When he left the hall, the whispers followed him as they did everyone else, but they bit him fondly. He had made a choice that morning that would scent the rest of his days. He felt it on his skin, as if a woman he had loved had laid a hand on his cheek and left warmth there. He thought of a woman he had loved once, and of a girl he could love now in the only way he understood love. He did not think of the cost. He had counted costs, and this one was in an ink invisible to other men. The Red Keep rearranged itself in the hours after the arrest as if it were a beast shaking off sleep and fleas. Doors that had been ajar closed. Doors that had been closed opened. Men appeared who had been invisible, and men who had been everywhere sank into cracks. Varys's little birds flew and perched and whispered to a man with rings on his fingers and sadness in his smile. Pycelle labored over parchment with a scribe's tenacity and an old man's tireless self-love. The kitchens served plain fare to the watch and richer to the lords, and coins changed hands as if they were gossip with weight. Barristan Selmy walked the halls with his hands behind his back and his eyes full of the past. Eddard Stark went to find his daughters. Arya was where he feared she would not be and where he hoped she was. He found her in a small and used hall, the boards scuffed by the feet of men long dead. Syrio Farrell stood before her, and the girl moved as he moved, balancing a practiced sword like a dancer holds a fan. When she saw Eddard in the doorway, she lost the slender thread of breath she had held and ran to him so fast he feared she would strike him like a storm and send him down. She skidded to a halt and stood crying, and he thought how often a cry looks like laughter until it comes out. "Father," she said. He put a hand on her head and felt how she would be tall. "Child." Syrio bowed a small bow. "Your grace, pardon. Your lord hand is now Lord Protector." Bravos would say, "The wind has changed. We do not argue with the wind. We learn its steps." "Master Farrell," Eddard said, "you have my thanks for your instruction. It seems there will be no Lannister men calling on my daughter today." "A pity," Syrio said, smiling. "She is in need of the lesson they could give." Arya scrubbed her nose with the back of her hand and scowled. "I don't want to dance with them. I want to cut their heads off." "Gods be good," Eddard said, and put a thumb to the smudge on her cheek as if he could wipe out the world that had taught her the sentence before she was old enough to carry it. "You will do no such thing. You will learn and you will listen. There is much to fear now, Arya, but there is more to do." "Are we going home?" she asked. "I hope to send you soon." "Not Sansa," Arya said bitterly, because she could not help but quarrel even when it was not war but fear that had her undone. "She wants to be queen. She'll never go if she thinks." "Sansa will do as she is bid," Eddard said, though his heart winced at saying it. "She will go where she is safe. Come, the hour is short." Sansa was not in her chamber. She was standing in a corridor where the light fell in a dark spill, because a tapestry of some nameless king's hunting had been drawn back. She was looking at her hands as if they were not hers. When she saw her father, she made a curtsy that was too deep and rose too fast. "Father," she said, "is it true? Do they say?" "They will say many things," he said gently. "Some of them will be true. Your betrothal is ended. The boy is under guard. We will send word to Winterfell, and you and your sister will go north when the roads are safe. You will not be queen." Sansa's face changed shape. He saw the girl's skin from which songs had been carved and saw, underneath, an ordinary, frightened child's. "But I love him," she whispered, and could not even make it sound like women do when they whisper that word to comfort themselves. "I love him." "You love a crown," Arya said, appearing like a shadow. "You love lemon cakes and a fool's hair and a sword you can't lift." "Enough," Eddard said, and his voice made Syrio Farrell lift his head in the chamber down the hall, because the Bravosi was a man who could hear the difference between a voice and an order. "Sansa, you will not see the prince again. He is not what you think him. He is." He could not say it. He would not tell his child that what she had wanted had never been hers to want. He could tell her the rest later, when she was far away, when the sound of the city's heart did not make every sentence seem like a part of a larger cruelty. "You will trust me," he said, and he knew how hard that was. He could not kneel, not with his leg, so he bent, and the pain that ran through him made his eyes water, and he brought his face to hers and held it there. "I will not lie to you," he said. "Lies are a poison that make men think they are well even as they die. We are not well, but we will live. You will live. Remember that your name is Stark. It is a heavy name. Carry it with both hands." She nodded, and he could have wept, but he did not. Arya tucked herself under his arm, merciless even in comfort, and Eddard let them both be weight to him as he straightened. They smelled of girl and candle smoke. "Return to your rooms," he told them. "Do not step beyond your walls without a guard I name. Arya, Master Farrell will come to you there. Sansa, Septa Mordain will." "Septa Mordain went to the Sept to pray," Sansa said, making it sound as if prayer were a weapon she could not wield. "I'll send men for her," Eddard said. "For now, lock the door behind you. I will set a guard that does not leave his post." When they were gone, the corridor felt wider and emptier and older. Eddard leaned a shoulder to the wall and took one deep breath. Petyr Baelish appeared out of a side stair with a cat's confidence that any stair led where he wished. He bowed by touching 2 fingers to his breast and letting his gaze slide down and then up again, as if bowing were a smile the body gave. "I've set coin flowing where it must flow," he said softly. "The watch will hold for as long as the coin does." "Men of honor hold without coin," Eddard said. "Not in King's Landing," Petyr said. "And not in Flea Bottom. Not on the Stepstones. Not anywhere I've ever been. Perhaps in Winterfell they eat honor and grow fat. Here we starve on it." He was watching Eddard's face and also something behind it. "You have done the realm a service," Eddard said. It was true, and it tasted strange. "There will be recompense. Offices, lands." "Do not pay me," Petyr said quickly, and then smiled at himself for the quickness. "Forgive me. Pay me by letting me serve. I've a part to play upon the boards, my lord, and it is not only the part of a purse. Give me leave to keep the purse and to smooth the counsel and to keep your enemies counting the wrong numbers." "Keep the city calm," Eddard said. "If we can hold the city, we can hold the realm. And the Lannisters will do what Lannisters do," Petyr said, and his eyes glittered. "They will not allow themselves to be held. But let us see how they run when the coin runs after them and not before." Varys came like a draft under a door, opening it before anyone had reached for the latch. "Lord Protector," he murmured, and Eddard thought how the words were armor and how the eunuch wore them lightly. "Your guests are lodged. We have given her grace the maiden vault and the prince the king's pavilion room. The hound sits outside like a stone that was a dog once. Your guards like him." "Good," Eddard said. "There is one more matter," Varys said, and his eyes slid sideways as if they might avoid stepping into anyone's gaze. "News travels faster than ravens when it wishes. Word of her grace's situation will reach the ears of Lord Tywin, and those ears will hear a storm. Do you wish Island Payne told to polish his sword?" "No," Eddard said very simply, and it was the one thing he had been certain of since Robert breathed last. "We will not spill the blood of a mother and her children while the ink on our proclamations is wet. We will hold them until the lords come. We will try them as the law allows, if trial there must be." Varys bowed a hair more than he had, and when he lifted, his eyes had a little warmth. "I will send the ravens," he said. That night the city was restless, and the Red Keep was a drum with a slow hand on it. Slint's men walked their rounds and did not step into doorways as much as they used to. A physician of little reputation checked on Eddard's leg and left powders that smelled like mold. Pycelle labored with a scribe, and the scribe fell asleep twice and Pycelle did not notice. Petyr sat alone in his chamber and looked at a small piece of jade that had belonged to a woman he had lost once on the stone of his pride. He put it back in the little iron box and turned the key and thought of a young girl with red hair who would grow into the place that had been empty all his life. He did not tell himself that he was wicked. Wickedness was a word men used to soften their knives. In the maiden vault, Cersei Lannister lay with her hands under her head and stared at the ceiling as if she could read the history of men there. The iron had not marked her. She had given Slint her wrists as if they were gifts and he had accepted them without pleasure. Joffrey had shouted and she had told him to be quiet, and marvelously, he had been. She had spoken to him in a voice that told him what he wanted was beneath him. He had cried, silently, when the door closed. Cersei did not cry. She listened. Under the floor, the city sang to her. It sang of pigs and sailors and saints' bones and knives and alley queens and 1,000 small lives. It sang of the great life that moved over them like weather. She smiled in the dark. They had put her in a cell made by kings to keep beautiful women away from their sons. If the walls had ears, then so had she. She had not lost, not yet. She had been here before, in halls where men thought they held her, and her brother had been the only one with a key. The smell of iron did not frighten her. She slept as the city gnawed its bones. In a keep of the rock's shadow, a man with a lion's face unfolded a parchment with such care that the endpoints of it laughed at him for his delicacy. When he came to the end, he reached for a second parchment and a third. He read in order and then out of it, not trusting the arrangement of words to do their work without his. He lay the letters side by side like men under his command and thought of the distance to the capital with a horse marching and supply lines, and the taste his mouth had when he was forced to reclaim something that had been his all along. "We march," he said to the air. "We march by the Gold Road. Draw men in from the foraging. Kevin, send word to Jaime that he is to take Harrenhal by speed and cut the Trident crossings. The North will move if their wolf is muzzled or if he howls. Either way, he moves. We will not be late to our own house." Kevin Lannister blinked owlishly behind the lamplight and rubbed his thumb along his belt until the leather shone where he worried it. "Cersei and Joffrey," he said, as if he could keep them alive with the breath he spent. "Brother, Ned Stark will not kill them." "Not yet," Tywin said. It was not a comfort. Men like Stark love the delay between a reason and a blade. They will fill it with prayers and good sense. That is their weakness and their strength. We will use both. On Dragonstone, the sea found the stone and licked and worried it with 1,000 tongues. The dawn there was stone gray and clean. Stannis Baratheon read Eddard Stark's letter and felt the tightness in his jaw he had expected. He had known this letter would come. He had known the old wolf was too full of honor to bend twice in the same day. He handed the letter to Davos Seaworth without speaking and watched the smuggler read it as if there were more in the black lines than ink and scrawl. "It is as we thought, Lord," Davos said, "because Stannis was not yet a king you could call your grace and survive in your own mind. Robert is dead. The Hand holds the city. He calls the lords to make judgment." "The lords," Stannis said, as if the word were a rind of lemon between his teeth. "Pycelle's friends and Hightower's cousins and old men with soft hands. They will call it a great council, and it will be a flea market in velvet. The law is no market. The crown is not an onion sold from a boat." Davos waited. He had learned to let Stannis speak until the fire had burned down to something you could stand beside. Stannis began to pace, and his boots made a sound Davos had come to know like a clock. There were fewer men in the yard than there should have been, and fewer ships in the cove than he would need. There was a woman in red who had made fire see her when she looked at it. She watched Stannis as a falcon watches the man with the hood. She watched Davos and seemed to see his bones. Davos did not like her and had made it a law that he would not say it. "Eddard Stark is no fool," Stannis said at last. "He has arrested the queen. That is a right beginning. He has summoned Renly as if my brother is a lord like the rest. That is a wrong continued. But the city is not in Lannister hands, and for this I would thank even a Northman. We sail within the week. You have the ships? Davos asked. Half the fleet's laid up, masts stripped, old planks yawning. I have my brother's blood in me, Stannis said. I will burn the last barrel of pitch and the last candle in the palace to light my road. Ask the captains who sides with law and who with their purses. Then tell me which men we have and which men will have to be taken for law the hard way. In the name of the Lord of Light, Melisandre said from the arch where the dawn made her hair something no human hair had the right to be. The usurper is dead. A shadow passes the land, but the righteous flame is kindled. You will take what is owed to you. What is ever owed me is duty, Stannis said. He did not look at her. I will take it. The boy, she said, smiling. The little squealer. The golden sow has farrowed monsters. Their blood is darkness. You must pour it upon the ground and let the dawn drink it. Stannis's face worked. He was not a man who liked cruelty. He was a man who thought that cruelty was another word for the work good men avoided until it became the work for bad ones. I will do what is required, he said. The law does not look at the size of a neck when it sends for the headsman. Davos felt a wind that was not a wind blow over the room. He had sons who laughed with their mouths wide open. He had held a baby that had been his and watched a breath go in and out. He had watched a man drown. He had been both. The hand is not like to cut children, he said. He will keep them alive until you come. And when you come, he may ask you to do what he cannot. Then we will see, Stannis said. The city will be ours, and the law will be written in a hand that does not shake. He turned to the window and the sea, which had never loved anyone and never would. Davos put Robert's seal back on the table and wondered what it meant to be the man who told kings when to eat and when to fight and when to let a child live. He had been that man before on a smaller boat. 3 days after the reckoning in the throne room, the bells of the city rang for a wedding that did not occur. The bells had no other way to mark the day, and they must be rung or they grew sulky with silence. The people poured into the streets to ask one another how small folk might save great houses from their own madness. Bread was dear that day and wine cheap. The bakers had decided to hedge their bets on trouble, and the wine sellers had decided that trouble was itself a currency. In the Tower of the Hand, Eddard Stark held a council with men who made him tired. Petyr Baelish made him thoughtful. Varys made him wary. Pycelle made him cold. The old man's words had the sound of oil poured on water. Barristan was a comfort and a burden. Janos Slynt was a reminder of the ugliness that keeps peace. There were no wars fought with only knights. Our ravens have flown, Pycelle wheezed, scratching a place beneath his beard that always seemed to itch when he lied. Lord Mace Tyrell sends word that he will consider. The Lord Paramount of the Reach must consider. The Lord Paramount of the Stormlands, Lord Renly, sends no reply. The Eyrie is silent. Lady Lisa has not answered a letter since her husband's death. Sunspear writes that they hold their ancient enmities close to their hearts like heirlooms. Lord Stannis, Eddard asked. Lord Stannis writes that he will come and make the law to be obeyed, Varys said, and allowed himself the smallest smile, as if the ink on the parchment had tickled him. He says he will arrive with ships enough and steel enough for all such obedience. And Lord Tywin? Eddard said. Lord Tywin has not honored us with a reply, Petyr said cheerfully. But his horse speaks for him. I have it on good authority that the lions have left their meat in the riverlands half-eaten. They march for the Gold Road, the better part of 20,000 in the van. It will be a harsh road for such a train. They will eat the country as they go. We could call men from the Stormlands to bar the way, Barristan said. Renly is more likely to bar his way to our council with a crown of his own, Petyr said mildly. He loved Robert, and Robert's golden shadow loved him back. But Stannis's law casts no shadow at all. Enough, Eddard said. We will not play at shadows. We will hold the gates and hope Stannis comes before Tywin does. Meanwhile, we must keep the peace within the city. Lord Varys, you will quiet the tongues that need quieting. Lord Petyr, you will see that bread and beer are cheap. Janos Slynt, you will be visible and you will be sober. Ser Barristan, you will speak to the White Swords and remind them to wait upon the law. Maester, you will tend to our ravens like eggs on a cold night. Very good, Petyr said, making it sound like a game he had hoped to play. After, when the others had gone, Petyr lingered as men linger when they have a gift they are eager to see opened. He looked at Eddard and looked away, enjoying the small pleasure of being able to withhold and extend as he chose. There is a thing you might hear from me rather than from the wind, he said. The girl, your elder daughter. Eddard stared and his head felt like a helm too tight. Sansa is safe. As safe as any girl in a city whose queen is a prisoner, Petyr said. She wanted to see the prince. She told my man as much. She believed she could make this all come right with a curtsy and a tear. She has been Cersei's pupil in the art of being seen. Eddard closed his eyes briefly. He saw a different redhead, taller, with hot words that had scalded his boyhood. He had thought he had put the ache of that away, crept back in the bones like an old storm. Petyr, if you know of any approaches to my children. I have closed them, Petyr said too quickly. I do not say this to frighten you, only to remind you that we are all stories told to ourselves by others. Watch your daughter's steps. She is not made for these floors. Eddard nodded. Thank you. I will arrange the matter of bread, Petyr said. Men who are full are slower to riot. I would not want someone else to become popular merely because I failed to be. He left with that, and Eddard sat with the quill and the ink and the knowledge that he was missing something important, the way a hunter knows a deer is near long before he hears it. In the Maiden Vault, Cersei spent her hours like a miser spends coin. Carefully, with thought for the day after. She did not debase herself with crying or rage. That was coin spent on drunken baubles. She thought about men. Men were never so simple as other women liked to pretend. They wanted honor when it served them and used honor as a leash when it served them better. Eddard Stark had a leash around his own throat. She would tighten it. She told Joffrey the same in fewer words. He had unlearned nothing in 3 days of fear. He preened under fear as if fear were new clothes. They will come to end this, he said. Grandfather will come. Uncle Jaime will come. They will put my sword in my hand and I will. She slapped him lightly, the way a woman touches a mirror to brush dust from it. You will do nothing, she said. You will wait. You will grow. And you will remember the names of those who sat and those who stood. He rubbed his cheek as if the touch had been a caress. I will remember, he said. Eddard Stark came to spee. Kay to her alone, unarmed, with Barristan Selmy in the corridor, and the hound sitting as if he had been carved there out of wolfstone. The room was pretty, as if prettiness were a defense in law. Cersei received him in a chair by the window where the sun could turn her hair into gold. Lord Protector, she said, tasting the words. Cersei, he said. He did not give her her grace. That would cost him nothing and it would buy her something. He was learning to count better. You pity me, she said. It is almost sweet. You are not a sweet man, Lord Stark. You are a hard man who cannot bend, and you think that is virtue. But look how you bend. Look how you have put your sons and yours daughters in rooms and told them they would be happier there. I have done what is required, he said, and he did not let her see how much it hurt him to be told such truths. You are the regent of nothing. The law will be done. The lords will come. They will sit in judgment. If you have arguments to make for your son's right to wear those swords, make them when you stand there. My son's right? The laugh she gave was a small, bright thing that made him think of glass breaking in a hand. Ah, Lord Stark, you should have burned my house down 5 years ago when you had the chance. You should have put a sword into my heart and another into my brother's and a third into Robert's as he slept, and then into your own. That would have ended it. That would have been honest. Instead you drank in Robert's halls and watched him squander himself and tutade and picked up his children when he dropped them. Now you clutch a law you did not make and think it is a shield against truth. Truth is a fire. You cannot hold it. It holds you. She leaned forward and he smelled some perfume she had no doubt chosen because it smelled like women in gardens and not like women in bed. "What do you want from me, wolf?" "Peace," he said. "Peace long enough for the lords to come and decide. I could have done what you suggest. I could have taken your heads already. I have not. Do not mistake restraint for weakness. It is a choice. It is the choice that will keep your children breathing. The law will ask whether they are legitimate. It will ask it in public. If the answer is no, the law will call them issue of incest and treason. If the law requires death, I will ask mercy. You know what sort of man I am. Believe this at least. I will not kill children in their beds to ease a day." She looked at him for a time that stretched until the stones sagged around it. "I believe you," she said, and made of those words a blade. "Do you know what else I believe, Lord Stark? I believe the man who comes to your gates with the law on his lips will bring the law that suits him, and he will ask you to be the hand that strikes for him, so that he looks good and you look evil. And you will do it because you cannot bend. I am teaching my son to bend. If he lives, he will live longer for it than kings who do not." He stood. "Teach him not to draw blood when he bends. The city is a tinderbox. A boy's whim could fire it. Tell him to be silent." She smiled again. "You tell him. He will listen to you. I think my son loves you. He loved his father once, and then he learned how easy it is to stop loving something that cannot love you back." He left her to her window and her thoughts. In the corridor, Barristan raised his brows one hair's worth. Eddard shook his head. "She thinks I will do Stannis' killing for him." "Will you?" Barristan asked. "No," Eddard said. He thought of his daughters and the way Sansa had said, "I love him," as if she were asking for a different ending to a different song. "No. I will ask mercy and I will not hide." When the black sails were sighted at the mouth of Blackwater Bay, the wind was wrong and the sky clear. Eddard stood upon the ramparts with his cloak pulled close and felt the stones under his boots. The city rushed like a hive beneath him. Carts creaked, children screamed and laughed, stalls rose and fell with the speed of breath. The sea was a moving iron and the ships were nails driven into it. The lead ship had a banner with a crowned stag upon it, and another beneath it in red with a yellow heart and a bright sword. The wind tried to make Eddard's hair move and failed. He had too little left to spare. "They have come," Petyr said at his shoulder, and managed to put into his voice both relief and dread. And with them, decision. Beside Eddard stood Barristan, and the old knight's face had a light on it. He had served 3 kings and watched 2 die and 1 rot. Perhaps he had thought he would die himself before seeing a day like this. "Ser Davos Seaworth," he murmured, as the smaller ship with ragged sails slid in behind the larger as if it had been attached to its wake by rope. "Smuggler, hero, and honest as a gull. And Stannis." "And Stannis," Eddard said. They did not open the gates as if they were frightened men. They opened them like a householder opens a door when a judge comes to read a writ. The procession from the quay to the Red Keep was small and stern. No singers, no crowns. The man at the head rode a horse the color of old leather, and his face held more weather than courtesy. He did not smile at the people. He did not look at them much. He looked at the streets as if they were a puzzle he had solved before and was checking his work. Beside him rode a man with a smuggler's hands and a lord's signet and eyes like flint left in water. Behind them came soldiers in plain mail, shields with Stannis' stag burned onto them as if with a hot brand. There was a priestess in red, walking, not riding, bareheaded, her hair like a flag, and people spat and made signs. She smiled at their curses, which frightened Eddard in a way he did not like. They met in the throne room, because there is where you meet a man who means to make and unmake names. Barristan stood near, and Varys, and Petyr with his face that was a stage on which anything might play. Pycelle wheezed and held a scroll no one had asked for. Janos Slint towered with the ease of men who have coin behind them. The Hound lounged like a dog at the children's table, watching with the eye of an animal who expects to be beaten and plans how to bite as he is. Stannis Baratheon did not look at the throne before he looked at Eddard Stark. He was a man who understood chairs. He bent his head an inch. "Lord Stark, Lord Stannis," Eddard said. "I grieve for your brother." "He killed himself with wine and kingship," Stannis said. "We will bury him in stone. Now, to the living, I have a claim. I have the law. I have men." "You have the law," Eddard said. "The truth will be set before the lords in open session. Robert named me protector to hold the city until then. I have done so. The queen and her children are in custody. They will face the law." "The law is this," Stannis said, and his voice filled the room without growing louder. "The woman lay with her brother and made children not of the blood of the king. Those children are abominations. They have no right to name or to life under the law. The woman is guilty of treason and adultery and must die. The man who lay with her must die. The king is dead without issue lawfully begotten. His crown passes to his elder brother. I am that man. The lords need not gather to scratch their ears like dogs. The law does not wait for their applause." Varys sighed, and it sounded like a silk cushion placed on a stone. "Your grace." "I am not your grace until I have the crown," Stannis said. "To be precise. But I will be. Bring them out. We will make of this room a court and of this day a hinge." Eddard's mouth felt dry. "I will not hang children." Stannis's face did not change, because it did not know how. He looked at Eddard as if he were measuring him for a coat. "You speak of hanging as if it were a caprice. You are not a woman to mistake law for love. You have blood on your hands that you call clean because the puddles were the right color. When your father and brother died, would you have named their murderers kings because they were young? You are not soft, Stark. Do not pretend to be soft now." "I will not do it," Eddard said again. He felt himself being driven like an iron into something. "You are rightful by law. I will name you. I will kneel to you, and I will plead for the lives of 2 children who did not ask to be born from sin. Send them into exile. Send the girl to a mother house and the boy to Old Town in a black robe to copy books until he forgets his own name. Or ship them far across the sea where they can never be used by any man. Do not spill their blood in this hall. And leave them for someone else's knife?" Stannis asked softly. "The law calls for justice, not pity. I will not have my reign begin like Robert's ended, with laughing at the law. The realm has had too many of your sort of mercy. It eats and leaves bones for the next man to break his teeth on." Petyr Baelish watched them as a man watches 2 swordsmen in a yard who do not know the other's trick. He had never wanted to laugh less. The thing he had made in the throne room had taken shape faster than he thought it could, and now it stood upon its own feet and asked him what he meant to feed it. He had counted this outcome and that, and left a space for this one because it pleased him to see what the world would do when he held his hands away. He thought of Sansa's eyes when he had told her that sometimes we put away the things we want waking for the things we want sleeping. He thought of Cersei in the Maiden Vault and the boy who could not see what the iron under him said about the men who had made it. "Your lordship," he said, stepping neatly into the river of their words and making it a slower thing for a moment. "If I might pour some wine upon this fire, there are optics to consider. I know you do not care for optics, Lord Stannis. That is your virtue. But the city does not live on law alone. It lives on performance. Kill the boy, and you will have shouts from the Stormlands that could be quieted with coin and time. Kill the girl, and mothers in alleys will tell their children your name at night to frighten them into obedience. Do you wish that? I ask only for this. Confine them. Place them where they cannot be used. The realm will thank you in time. The law will not have been mocked. You will have had your heads if you decide to take them later. Later is a sweet time." Stannis looked at him as if he were something on his plate he had not ordered. "Who are you to tell me how men see kings? I am the man who knows how men lie to kings about what they see," Petyr said, and the smile he gave was the one he used to make butchers sell him the marrow for less than they'd meant to. Barristan Selmy stirred, and the room looked at him without looking. "Sire," he said, and the word came without shame or adornment. "If mercy is an offense against the law, then we have all offended. Better to offend on the side men forgive. I have served mad kings and weak ones. The people forgive less easily the blood of children than they forgive a slow counsel. The boy has shown himself ill-suited to rule even his own temper. The girl I cannot speak against. If it please you, hold them. Make of their lives an oath. There is honor in that. Honor. How the room loved that word when it was not asked to eat it. Stannis's jaw worked, and his eye flicked towards Davos. The Onion Knight did not smile. He did not do anything. But Stannis had learned too much from the sea not to feel a wind on his cheek. He lifted his head a hair, as if he could sniff mercy the way a dog scents rain. This, he said at last, as if each letter were a nail he was driving with a hammer, is my will. The woman will stand trial for treason, adultery, and murder. Murder? Cersei said from the threshold, and her voice was the sudden flash of light whe. And you strike steel on flint. She had been brought in with her wrists bound and her hair unbound, and the sight of her in chains made the room lean as if to keep from falling. Joffrey walked a pace behind, hands in irons, chin up as if iron were a choice he had made to ornament himself. Stannis looked at her as if she were a report. He did not flinch. The death of Lord Arryn is at your door, he said. Spare me your tears. You can use them later when you must. She laughed then, a delicious, dreadful sound, and turned her head to look at Petyr Baelish. Tell them, little Lord of the Fingers. Tell them about poison and tears and letters and love. Tell them what the realm is made of. Perhaps they think it is iron. Perhaps they think it is law. Tell them it is men. Petyr returned her gaze with a polite blankness. It was his finest look. I fear I do not understand, your grace, he said. Of course you do not, she purred, and turned her attention to the man with the iron jaw. Lord Stannis, you will do as you will do. That is the only thing I believe about you. But know this, if you spare my children, I will break on your wheel in such a way that men will forgive you for everything you have ever been wrong about. If you kill them, I will not break. I will become something else in the mouths of men. There will be no mercy for you even when you are right. And if you kill me and spare them, you will make of me a martyr and of them pieces in a game you do not know how to play. You do not play, do you? You only move in straight lines. Do as you like. I am tired. Murderers do not choose the tune to their own dance, Stannis said. But you prance prettily. The court will hear evidence on the morrow. As for the children, they will live, for now, as hostages to the realm's sanity. The girl will be sent to the mother house of the Great September to take milk and prayers and learn silence. The boy will be placed under guard in the Citadel's custody until the court is resolved. If any of your creatures attempt rescue, they will be put to the sword. If any harm comes to them, I will burn the city that once burned my ships so that there is nothing left to burn. I will be king in ashes if I must, but I will be king. There was a breath let out in the room that did not come from any one chest. Eddard closed his eyes and saw winter. When he opened them, Sansa Stark's face appeared in his memory so suddenly his balance swayed. He made sure his legs would hold him and very quietly thanked the old gods in his heart and the new gods with a nod to the silent statue in his mind. After the court dispersed, after Cersei had been taken back to her vault and Joffrey to his novels of pen and ink, after Stannis had taken rooms in the keep and Davos had slipped off to speak to men below stairs who told more truth than their betters, after Varys had drifted away like a thread of incense, Petyr Baelish remained in the hall with Eddard and Barristan. Janos Slynt had gone to count his men again, for he trusted them better in numbers than in names. The Hound had gone to stare at his hands. You see, Petyr said, coming to stand too close to Eddard and yet in such a way that Eddard did not step away. Mercy has its use. Even kings can learn it. Today the city does not burn. Today your daughters will not wake to bells for a beheading. This is a day I will write down and count when I tally my deeds. You will tally them before the stranger ever has the chance, Barristan said dryly, and Petyr offered him a look of wounded innocence that would have drawn silver from a Septa's bosom. Lord Stannis is king in all but crown, Eddard said, tasting the shape of that sentence. I will kneel to him in the morning, in the sept, before the mother, and after, I will ride north with my daughters. You will not, Petyr said, and his smile returned like a knife to a sheath. Not yet. You will be asked to be hand again. You will be asked to put your name to judgments. You will be asked to eat law until your teeth crack. He cannot rule this city with his men alone. He does not know the taste of its air, and he does not know the taste of lies. He will need a Stark like a boulder needs moss to look agreeable. Then he will govern alone, Eddard said. I have done my duty. Petyr touched him lightly on the sleeve, then took his hand away as if he had touched a forge by mistake. I once loved a woman who loved you, he said conversationally. That made you my enemy in my head for a time. Foolish, yes, but I have made a life of my head. Now I find that when I make you safe, I feel not full, but less empty. Is that not miraculous? Eddard stared at him. Keep your miracles for yourself. If you are sincere, and I cannot say when you are, I do not know what to do with that. Use it, Petyr said, and his eyes went to a place past Eddard's shoulder where Sansa Stark had once stood smelling of lemon and dreams. Use everything. Stannis' coronation took place beneath the stars because he said the sky was witness enough and he would not kneel before the gods of men who had never answered him. He did kneel to accept a crown, though, and if the Red Woman's hand brushed it as it went upon his head, if the mother statue in the Great Sept looked down with a face that might have been displeased had it ever been allowed to move, if men muttered and women crossed themselves, the act was done all the same. Eddard knelt to him there, and when he rose his knees ached and his heart did not. The city took in the sight of Stannis with its many eyes and could not decide yet what to make of him. It would decide. Cities always do. Until then, Ser Davos ate bread with fishwives and told them about kings who count their own coins. Janos Slynt swaggered until Barristan's glance reminded him he was not the tallest thing in any room. Varys ran fingers along threads that had never been attached. Pycelle fumbled. The hound drank. Cersei stood at her trial lee. Coup, a statue placed where it does not belong. When the matter of Jon Arryn's death was set forth by Eddard Stark, who had learned from Petyr Baelish that the poison called the Tears of Lys had been about in the keep at the time and in whose hands, the chamber stirred as seagrass stirs when a shark passes. She glanced once to Varys then, and his eyes gave her nothing. She glanced once to Petyr, and his eyes gave her back her own face in polished bronze. Who did it? Stannis asked when the arguments of men were done. Name the hand. Cersei's smile was a line cut with a surgeon's knife and held with silver thread. The hand, she said, and she looked at the usurper of an usurper's throne with all the light of her youth gone out of her. The hand that killed Jon Arryn was a little one, and the arm that moved it was very strong and very far away. But this is the law, is it not? Find someone to put to death anyway. It is not justice. It is custom. Name the hand, Stannis said. She turned to Eddard then in a motion so swift he had to check that she was still chained. Tell them, Stark, she said. Tell them who profits when men die in ways that look like God's will. Tell them what is whispered in brothels about milk of the poppy and what is whispered in the Tower of the Hand about brave men being fools. Tell them who told you the truth about my children and ask yourself why. Eddard said nothing. He had more truth in his head than he had ever had, and some of it had been given to him by a man he would not have trusted with a shaken cream. He watched Stannis watching Cersei, and he saw in the hard man's eye the same thing he had seen in the eyes of good men forced to walk too long on stone. The longing to see grass again, even if it was bent. In the matter of Lord Arryn, Stannis said at last, this court finds that there is suspicion and smoke and no flame we can name. The Crown will pursue the matter further. In the matter of incest, the evidence is clear. The Queen will be kept in confinement until such time as I deem it wise to pursue the full penalty. Her brother Jaime Lannister is declared traitor and wanted for judgment. The girl Myrcella will go to the September. The boy Tommen will be placed under a surety. The boy Joffrey is held at the Citadel's request. They have sent a letter requesting his person to be studied for maladies of the mind. The Citadel will find itself disappointed in such requests. The city breathed out again when the heads did not roll that day. It breathed in when word of Lord Tywin's army moving like a red thing along the Gold Road came. It held that breath as it watched Stannis Baratheon test its walls with his presence and Eddard Stark test his mercy with a blade he did not draw. It lived. It dreamed. In the evenings, when the keep quieted, Petyr Baelish walked sometimes to a narrow stair where a girl with red hair had once sat to look at the moon. He stood there in the moon's place. He did not touch the stone. He did not say her name. He could hear laughter in places where there was none. It did not disturb him. It was company of a sort. One night Sansa came and found him there. She carried in her hands a book because she had decided books proved good intentions. She stopped when she saw him because she had been taught to stop when a lord stood where she had thought she would go. "My lady," he said, and bowed with nothing in it that could be measured. "You walk late." "I cannot sleep," she said. I dream of songs that end in the middle. People do not finish their last lines. Most songs in this city are interrupted," he said. "It is how they make room for the next singer." She hugged the book. "Will Ser Island cut the queen's head?" she asked in a very small voice. "Not today," Petyr said. "Tomorrow is another city. Do you miss him?" "Who?" "The boy." She looked down, and in that looking down there was a confession and a recanting and a prayer. "I miss what I thought he was. He was kind to me. He looked like Tails." She swallowed. "Now he looks like a boy. We are all boys and girls until someone gives us a story to play," Petyr said. "And then some of us are men and women, and most of us are still boys and girls in more expensive clothes." "Why did you help my father?" she asked, lifting her eyes to him with a suddenness that made him wonder whose daughter she was and then remember whose. "Why did you truly?" He could have lied. He could have told her that he had seen the law with the eyes she imagined he had and loved its shape. He could have told her that the realm had been saved by his good heart. He could have told her he had done it to spite her mother, to spite her father, to spite himself. Instead he said something useful and nearly true. "I like to back a man who can carry the weight I give him," he said. "I have backed kings who needed too much coin and men who needed too much praise. Your father needs neither. He is poor at being moved by anything but his conscience. That makes him very rich to a certain sort of man." "To you," she said, daring. He smiled. "For today." When she was gone, he put a hand on the wall and felt the stone's coolness creep into his palm. He did not know whether he had made the right choice. He did not know whether the right choice existed. He knew only that chaos had a savor and law a different one. He had eaten from both platters now and found himself both fed and hungering. At night, Eddard Stark dreamed of white wolves and listened to crows. He wrote to Robb to keep his men in hand, to hold the neck, to send food to Riverland's villages if he could. He wrote to Cat with words that tried to be a cradle and a blade and could be neither. He wrote to Winterfell to keep the fires banked for a long winter, to see the ledgers right, to make sure there was wood enough and patience enough. He signed each with his name that felt heavier every day. Tywin Lannister's army came near and did not come. Nearer. Renly's banners appeared on the horizon like a rumor and swerved south to Highgarden, where flowers were counted and men counted them. The Tyrells were a garden with walls. The Martells waited and watched. The Freys rubbed their hands. The Greyjoys sent no letters and drew up no chairs. The realm teetered on the edge of a diet of iron and found itself chewing bread instead. Surprised, suspicious, not trusting the taste. On a chalk cliff above Blackwater Bay, Melisandre stood with her face turned to the east and her arms open. "I have seen a shadow over this city," she murmured to no one that did not listen. "It will come. It always comes. It loves law as much as chaos. It loves the sound the last stone makes when it falls." She smiled then, as a woman smiles who has let her lover go out the door knowing he will return. The sea kept saying yes and no and perhaps. The sky gave nothing away. In the Red Keep under stone, a woman of gold lay awake and counted the names of men she would burn if given fire. In the Sept, a girl prayed and did not know whether she prayed for her old life or her new. In a tower, a man who had wanted only winter and the solace of a hearth wrote a letter that began, "To whom it may concern when I am gone," and then tore it up. The Iron Throne did not move. Could not. Men moved around it like weather. Some days the light made it smile. Some days it looked like a rack on which a city had been stretched. For a time, while the breath of one man and his enemies held, the the swords were only swords. Then the bells began, far off on the western road, and men turned their faces toward dust and the red banners that came. The bells sometimes ring for weddings that do not happen, and so they did that season. They rang for a crown that had not yet broken, for a city that had not yet burned, for a choice that would cost a man the rest of himself, and for all the songs that would be interrupted when the shouting started again.